What's up everybody, it's me Zombie. Today I'm starting a brand new project. I'm going to be working on a Star-Lord costume from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And today I'm going to be starting on the front of the jetpack rig. For starting a more complex piece like this, I like starting off by patterning out some really basic geometric shapes that fit into the chest piece. For example, looking at my reference images, I can see that the chest piece is comprised mostly out of two basic shapes. After these two basic shapes are done, it's really all about just layering foam detail on top of it until it looks like the final product. Using some printer paper, I'm sketching out some of the larger parts of the chest piece. Knowing that this chest piece is symmetrical, I know whenever I trace one piece, I can trace it one more time, and I'm basically cutting my patterning work in half, which is really convenient. For my patterns, I like cutting out little pieces of my paper patterns as I go, and as needed, trace them onto my main part or onto the foam that I'm wanting to transfer a piece onto. For this particular piece, I'm making a little recessed detail. I'm using my pen and gently tracing around my pattern, and then using my utility knife and X-Acto blade, I'm cutting out that little piece. Since the edge of this recessed piece is a little bit thinner, I decided to try to use my X-Acto blade to make the initial part a little bit thinner. I decided I wanted to make it really exact, so I took it to my bandsaw, and using my fence, I cut these pieces and made them a little bit thinner so they would make a nice recessed piece. I super glued the piece that I initially cut out back onto the foam piece, and ta-da! There we have it! You have a nice recessed piece. I continued this kind of subtractive patterning method for the rest of the complicated little pieces on that lower part of the chest piece. Looking at my reference pictures, there really just was a lot of cutting away at foam, gluing it back on, using some 2mm foam to add other little foam details on it. It was kind of like seeing a bunch of really tiny little geometric shapes come together and create something much bigger and cooler, like a Star-Lord jetpack, for example. This process really required me to look really hard at my reference images that I had every few minutes in between cutting and gluing pieces. For my references, since this movie isn't out on Blu-ray yet, I'm using references from a Hot Toys figure. I love these figures because they're so high detail. If you're wanting to create a more complicated costume from the Marvel Universe, I highly recommend looking at Hot Toys figures because, dang, those are some really nice detailed figures. They're not 100% like the movie, but all the detail is there and it'll help you create a really cool looking final costume. Now I'm creating another recessed piece in the middle that I'll be creating much like my first recessed piece. Just for convenience sake, I'm pinning down my pattern as I go. It's much easier to have the pins do the work of holding down your pattern while you're having to sketch out a really complicated piece. I've been using my X-Acto blade a lot for this project just because it really gives me the precision that I need for all these teeny tiny little pieces. After my foam was free, I pressed it down just a little bit so I have a nice little recessed ridge, and then used my super glue to glue everything in. Inside of this recessed piece, there are two little kind of scale bubbly pieces, so using my same pattern, I cut those out with my X-Acto blade and then transferred them onto 2mm foam. For the connector part in the middle that holds the two chest plates together, I'm using my pen and a scrap piece of paper to trace out the rough shape of what I want. This little connector piece has its own recessed and detailed pieces on it, so I just slowly put those all together with super glue. I prefer super glue when working on smaller projects and smaller little pieces, just because it doesn't take as long to dry as, say, barge or another adhesive, and I know it's gonna stick really nicely. After I've set these two pieces down on my foam piece and assured that everything looks right, I went ahead and committed and glued everything together. Now I'm starting to put more detailed pieces around the edge of my chest piece. Using 2mm foam, I created two little fin pieces and stuck them together in the middle. That little seam that you see in the middle is actually working to my advantage because, per the reference picture, there actually is one. Here's the super gluing technique for you. I use a little bit of super glue in the middle of the pieces I'm about to glue down, and use a scrap piece of foam to wipe the glue all around. This just helps everything be even and make sure that I don't have too much glue on one piece. And once one side's done, I do the exact same thing on the other side. Now this is starting to look more like a chess piece. I'm continuing more details by now pressing a piece of paper up against my actual foam piece and sketching out little details. I cut it out with my scissors, transfer it onto foam, and glue it on and repeat. For black foam, I like using a silver Sharpie just because it helps my patterns show up a little bit better. I continued the same technique all the way down the chess piece onto those little strappy bits that you see down there. It was just a lot of making more recessed pieces, making larger pieces. For the front of the jetpack rig, I used 3 different kinds of EVA foam. 5mm foam, 1/2 inch foam, and 2mm foam. For the top straps, I repeated the same technique that we've been using for the whole video. I even made some ridges using my X-Acto blade. I know when these ridges are hit with heat, they're really gonna open up and look like nice details. Made sure that my straps fit on either side and were accurate before committing, gluing them down, and then adding even more details. After doing the same on either side, they are all ready to go. This is all before the rotary tool treatment, so there's a lot of smoothing out and cleaning up to do on the front here, but the main construction part is all done. And there you have it, guys. That is the front of the jetpack rig. This was super fun to build, really relaxing, and it was awesome to start a new project. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I can't wait to move on to the jetpack piece in the back, which will be pretty challenging, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to showing it to you guys. If you like cosplay and cosplay related content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.